Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I'm Maddie if you're new. Today is going to be part 2 in my little series. So last week I made a video about what you should know before buying a home, and in this part 2 we're going to be talking about things that you should know going into renovating a home. So whether you're doing like a full-scale renovation like we did back in Colorado, or whether you're doing a much smaller renovation like we will probably be doing with our next house here in South Carolina, these tips kind of apply across the board. So as some background, if you did not watch part 1 or if you haven't watched my videos before, back in Colorado, we did a full-scale renovation on this 1950s ranch. We turned it into this 5-bed, 4-bath home that was kind of going to be our forever home that we ended up selling. So we did pretty much everything. We added a second story, redid every room downstairs as well as the basement, the landscaping, all of the main systems of the house we replaced. We pretty much built a new house with the existing structure of the house that we bought. So that's kind of where I have learned all of these things that I want to share. I'm going to start with where to start when you are doing a renovation. What is the first thing that you should do? And of course, that is to make a plan. I have a bunch of notes here, so I'm just going to be looking at my notes a little bit here and there. Get really clear on the before and the desired after. The first thing I did when we were thinking about renovating our home was I created a floor plan for the existing house. So I just sketched it out, I think on paper and then on my iPad. And I didn't worry too much about the specifics. I am not an architect. I could get an idea of what I was working with and what it would take to move certain walls around to create the flow that I really envisioned for the first floor of the house. You can go around your house with a measuring tape and get all of the specs, measure out where the windows are, where every door is, all of the walls, of course, and just create this layout for yourself and use that as a jumping off point. That's not to say that if you are doing a full-on renovation remodel, you shouldn't hire an architect, but I'm going to get to that in a second. And I do think that whether you hire an architect or not, having your own floor plan, it just sketched out even like on a napkin, is super, super helpful, and you want to do that first. So once you have that initial floor plan and at least an idea of what a potential after floor plan would be, that would be a good time to start putting together a Pinterest board. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this. You guys know how to create a Pinterest board. Just gather inspiration and don't get too attached to any one room that you see on Pinterest or any one aesthetic, because I think that can pigeonhole you a little bit. Just grab inspiration for a bunch of different things you like. You can even make notes in Pinterest, like I pinned this because I like the rug. I pinned this because I really like the wall color. I pinned this because I really like the lighting. Just gather everything that you really like. Then you'll slowly be able to whittle it down to what will work best with this house, because you can love a lot of different things, but you are going to have to kind of narrow down into one direction for the home or the room. But before you get too narrow, I would also recommend figuring out what your limitations are. Mainly your budget and what you can and can't change in the home. Maybe just jot down what all your limitations are so that you can start to use those to your advantage. Don't necessarily look at a budget as like a big bummer. Look at it as an opportunity to sort of solve a design problem. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit when it comes to materials and choosing things for your renovation. But I also want to say, when you are coming up with this inspiration and your new layout and all of your initial ideas, it's also really important to think about how you and the people that you live with function day to day and how your home should facilitate those functions. So I said this in my previous video too, when it comes to choosing the right home for you. Also, when it comes to renovating, a really good place to start is by writing down your daily and weekly routines. Take really detailed notes about what you do day to day, and you can think about how your space can really help you do those things or make those things more enjoyable. It will also help you avoid falling into common pitfalls or just creating spaces that function like everyone else's, even if you and your family don't function like everyone else does. Okay, once you have some ideas of what you want your house to end up looking like, feeling like, your must-haves list, maybe a potential layout idea, it's time to figure out all of the steps you would need to take to get your home from point A to point B, or your room that you're renovating from point A to point B. And if you have no idea where to start with creating that step-by-step list, then this might help you. I'm going to go through a list of all of the different sort of trades that go into renovating a home. And if you just want to use a contractor and have your contractor sub out all of these different trades, you can absolutely do that. We did do that on our house in Colorado. However, it did not go well. You really have to trust your contractor, and you have to find a really good one for that process to go smoothly. And unfortunately, we did not have a good one. So I feel like my husband and I ended up sort of being the contractor and working with all of the subcontractors because our contractor didn't do anything. Even if you are going to work with a contractor and you're not going to hire all the subs yourself, it's still important to know what all those subs are and what they do. First is an architect. That is pretty obvious. If you're doing a big enough renovation to where you are adding on to your home or completely redoing the layout, then you may need an architect. But if you have a very clear idea of what you want, you might be able to sort of just drop the sketches yourself and give them to a contractor. But an architect, that's number one. We had an architect do all the plans for our house. After I showed them all of my ideas, they basically took what I had done and made it better. Next would be framing. So framers are the people who create the structures of your home, the walls, the beams, everything that holds your house up. That is what framers do. And they will basically just look at the architectural plans and bring those walls and door openings, window openings to life. Plumbing, electrical, HVAC, those are all like sort of the major systems of the home. And of course, things that I would hire out because I don't know how to do any of them. Roofing, siding, and masonry, that's all on the exterior of your home. So of course, roofers, if you need a new roof, you may not, or if you need roof repairs, a roofer will do that, putting on the shingles or whatever type of roof you choose. Masonry is if your home is made from brick, they can do any brick repairs or actually building with brick. Carpentry is basically people who work with mostly wood to create things in your home, such as trim, like your baseboards, crown molding, the trim around your doors, the doors themselves getting installed. A carpenter will probably do that. These are sometimes the same guys that do the structural, like the framing, but sometimes they can be different. Next is drywall. So once you have like the structure of the walls up in your home, someone who is a specific drywaller will come in and put your drywall up. Sometimes they'll like put insulation inside first and then drywall over top of it. So actually insulation, that's like a whole other company that does that. Then once you do your drywall, walls have different textures. So you kind of have to choose what texture you want. The drywall guy will do that as well. Flooring, so whether you're doing wood, tile, stone, concrete, whatever you're doing, that is another subcontractor. And tile kind of goes along with that. But if you're doing tile in your bathrooms, tile on the floors, tile in your backsplash, that is a subcontractor as well. Cabinetry, if you're doing custom cabinetry, that's a whole other company. Or you can kind of order your cabinetry from a big box store or something like that and have your carpenters install it or install it yourself. And the last thing I have on here is painting. Your painters obviously can paint the exterior and interior of your home. And yeah, I think that's about it. I'm probably missing some, but for the most part, those are like the main subcontractors that you would work with renovating a house. So knowing all that, you can probably start to put together that step-by-step list of everything you need to do to get from point A to point B. And once you have that list, you can kind of figure out what you want to do versus what you want to hire out. Like I mentioned, I am not someone who has like tons of skills in terms of all of these trades. I am a fairly handy person, I guess, as far as, you know, things go. But most things I will hire out. So I'll tell you all the things I can do myself, and I feel like you could do yourself if you had the right tools. First of all, design. That's something I obviously am gonna do myself. There is a dog loose in our front yard, and I wanna make sure she has a mom. Okay, I think she has a mom. Other things that I do myself is like building things out of wood, like shelves. That's pretty much it, actually. There's not a whole lot else that I've built out of wood other than shelves. I've also installed beadboard and trim, like window trim. And then I've painted. So I've painted walls, doors, cabinets, shelves, things like that. And also stained and refinished wood, whether it was a door or furniture. Those are pretty much the things. Oh, and like switching out knobs and pulls and things on cabinetry and doorknobs. Like I can do that stuff myself, but there's really not a whole lot else I have done myself in terms of renovations. It's more like I know what I want and I'm working with other people to make the vision come to life, and I'm sourcing the materials, which I will get to. If you're like a total DIYer, you might have more things on your list that you're gonna do yourself, and that is amazing. More power to you. I would love to learn how to do some more things, like maybe tiling and stuff. But yeah, those are kind of the things that I would say anyone could do if you have the right tools. And I'll just really quickly tell you the tools that I have that help me do all those things. So I have a miter saw that I use, like I said, for all of the wood things I make. I have a nail gun, drill, and like different bits for the drill, and then just other basic tools like hammer, nail, screws, screwdriver, safety glasses, gloves, level, stud finder, measuring tape, paintbrushes, rollers, frog tape, that kind of thing. So that's really mostly what I have in terms of tools, and it allows me to do, like I said, just those like smaller handiwork types of projects and DIYs that aren't like super overwhelming. When it comes to working with the subcontractors on things that you don't want to do yourself, my tip for that would be to get 2 or 3 quotes for every single thing you do. So if you're going to get a room painted, even get 2 or 3 quotes. If you want an electrician to come and move some outlets and things around and like lights around and things like that, get 2 or 3 quotes. Just always get 2 or 3 quotes, and then overestimate, like add some to the budget and the time frame, because it almost never goes exactly how they say it's going to go. And I would say the same goes for if you're doing a big renovation and you hire a contractor, like a main contractor who hires out. Get 2 to 3 quotes. Meet at least 3 contractors if you're about to do a big renovation. Tips for working with a contractor. As you're vetting these people, make sure that they have what's called builder's risk insurance. There's a bunch of types of insurances that most contractors like have to have, but not all of them have to have builder's risk insurance. And that is what protects you if they mess up. And so that's really important, and something we overlooked when we did our renovation with our contractor. He messed up so many times, ran away with our money, and we were not really protected at all. So anyway, make sure you know exactly what you want before the contractor like puts together the contract. If you just go and you say, okay, we want to update this house and we want this many bedrooms and like, you know, whatever, they're going to come up with their own idea. I would not prefer to work that way. I would prefer to figure out exactly what I want, write it all out, get pictures, reference images, all of this stuff, and bring that to the contractor or the subcontractor and have them come up with a quote and tell me what they can do, like how they can help me get that done. And with all that in mind, have that contract be as extremely specific as possible. Your contractor can always say, like, as you start to get clear and clear on what you want, or even change your mind throughout the process, your contractor can upcharge you for all of these little like updates and decisions. So the closer you get to exactly what you want from the get-go, the better. So before you drop a contract with your contractor, have as much figured out as you possibly can. That is my like number one piece of advice, and something I did not do as well as I would have liked to. Something we did do really well was documenting everything. And I think that's really important. Have a spreadsheet that documents all of the choices that you've made, are making, the prices, links to all of the like appliances and materials. Just keep a log of everything that has happened. Every like conversation you have with a contractor where you say, can we do this? And he says yes. Follow up with an email and be like, okay, we talked about doing this instead of this today, and you said it would cost this amount of money, just confirming, you know, that type of thing. Keep everything documented. Don't let anything sort of slip through the cracks, or don't assume that your contractor understands or remembers. Have it in writing and have it documented. And also stick to your guns, because if you are someone like myself who is very opinionated and you want what you want and you know what you want, your contractor isn't always going to agree with you. And he might try, or she might try, to talk you out of doing what you want to do because it's a little bit harder, or it's not what they would do, or it's not what most of their clients do. Stick to your guns, because for the most part I stuck to my guns. But there's just one thing that comes to mind where I'm like, I totally should have just stuck with what I wanted. In bathrooms where you have shower tile, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll put what's called schluter on the edges. And that basically is just an end cap for your tile so that there's not a raw edge hanging out. All of the inspiration images I found didn't have schluter. They had the raw edges, and I was fine with that, and I kind of preferred how that looked. But when I was speaking to my contractor and the subcontractor that was installing the tile, both of them looked at me like I was crazy when I said I didn't want schluter, because they were kind of like, you definitely need schluter, you know. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. So I chose this like gold schluter, and I never liked how it looked. Like, as soon as they started installing it, I regretted it. And I was like, no, like, that's not the look I wanted. Like, trust your gut and stick to your guns, because you know what you want. And all of these like sort of defaults and rules that people follow in interior design and in renovations, some of them, of course, have a function and a purpose and something where, you know, maybe they have to happen, but not all of them do. Like, just because everyone else does XYZ doesn't mean you have to. So just keep that in mind. Like, your contractor, on certain things they know best, but on certain things they don't. And you can push back a little bit and be like, no, like, I want it to look like this. I feel like I'm reiterating here, but be as detailed and specific as possible with every single thing that you ask a contractor or subcontractor to do. Print out visuals or email visuals with little notes pointing to exactly what you want to point out. Even leave notes up in the house, because you're not always going to be on site. Put little sticky notes up and, you know, text your contractor, hey, I have a sticky note up that shows you XYZ. Like, be that annoying client, because what's more annoying is when they do it wrong and then you have to have them fix it, and no one is happy in that scenario. That will definitely inevitably happen from time to time throughout the process, but the less that happens, the better. Try to always be 3 steps ahead of whoever is working on your house, and be thinking 3 steps ahead. And also try to be present as much as you can. Obviously, this is not your full-time job, and so you can't be there all the time. But as much as you can stop by and make sure things are going as you sort of envisioned, the better. And the sooner you catch a mistake, the better. Ask as many clarifying questions as you need to understand the process and what's going on. If you're going into this for the very first time, you're not going to understand everything, and so you're probably not going to be able to make informed decisions. So don't feel stupid asking your contractor 100 questions. Or this is your home, you're going to be living in it, and so like I said, you need to understand what goes into all these things in order to make informed decisions. So don't feel bad about asking questions. Don't feel stupid. It's a very collaborative process working with subcontractors. Okay, my next section here is choosing and sourcing materials for your renovation. Try to let your limitations inspire the types of materials that you choose, as opposed to, let's say, just having a mood board that you really, really want to stick to and doing whatever it takes to get that look. So I'm going to use countertops as an example. So let's say this is your inspiration picture for your kitchen. It's got this beautiful marble countertop. Let's say you are sort of envisioning your kitchen looking like that, and then you start this renovation process and realize that that type of countertop is not within your budget. In my opinion, the best way to handle that is to change up directions and use that limit as sort of a guiding light for what materials you should bring into the space. So instead of maybe getting like a laminate countertop that has like these printed slabs on them made to look like marble, but they're not real marble, they're plastic. Instead of going that direction, which in my opinion is going to look cheap and inauthentic, choose the best authentic and honest material within your budget. So I mentioned this a bit in the previous video. What an authentic material is it's a material that's not pretending to be something it's not. So real marble is an authentic material, but plastic printed to look like marble is not an authentic material. Real wood is an authentic material. So I would opt for butcher block countertops over plastic printed slab countertops because I really value like the authenticity of the materials that you bring into your space. And I feel like it really makes a space feel off if there are, let's say, a wallpaper made to look like brick instead of real brick, or instead of just a pretty patterned wallpaper or a painted wall. Your budget can really affect the types of materials you bring in. So try not to work against that, but instead work towards it and really embrace the more cost-effective materials that are still authentic, like wood. In order to avoid your house looking like everyone else's, don't source your materials from where everyone else does. This is easier said than done, I know, but an idea I really like and something that I'm definitely going to do in my home, my next home, is splurging on one material and going really super cost effective on the rest. So as an example, let's say that we're redoing our bathroom. Maybe splurge on the shower tile. Get something super handmade and beautiful. And for everything else, maybe go secondhand. Reclaimed cabinetry, butcher block countertops, secondhand sinks and faucets, maybe a very basic toilet and tub. Those secondhand elements are gonna have so much character and personality to them. The basic elements are going to sort of fade into the background and not call too much attention to themselves. And the material you splurged on is gonna be a really beautiful sort of statement, I guess you could say, to elevate the space and make it feel really unique and sort of valuable, if that makes sense. I just think that's such a better way to approach a renovation than going sort of middle of the road for everything, because that's going to make your space look like everyone else's. You don't want your home to look like a Home Depot catalog. You know what I'm saying? So if you can sort of go unique as much as possible, and like I said, you don't have to splurge on all this unique stuff. You can really balance between the things that are actually kind of expensive and things that are still special because they are secondhand, reclaimed, things like that. So if you're wondering where to find secondhand and reclaimed materials for your renovation, I have some tips. Google surplus building materials or salvage building materials in your area, and you should get a couple of hits on places you can go where basically builders will bring their extra building materials. There's a place in Denver called Extra Building Materials where we got every single door for our house. You can find really quality and interesting materials if you do it this way, and you can save so much money. So the places like that, like surplus building places, usually have things like cabinets, sinks, toilets, doors, trim, countertops, tile. And then places like Habitat Restore are basically, I think they have them in most cities, and they're essentially like a Goodwill for materials used for renovations and stuff. So cabinets, sinks, countertops, appliances even, lighting, hardware, and they also have furniture at Habitat Restore. And then of course you can also look on Facebook Marketplace. That's a good place to find things like sinks, faucets, or if you're looking for something really specific. My next section is I want to touch on some things that I would consider not changing in your house. So first is floors. Maybe your wood floors look like they're in horrible shape. There's a lot that you can do by just hiring someone to refinish them, sand them, restain them. And if there are imperfections after that, I say, who cares? I think your floors are supposed to look worn in. They've been walked on for God knows how many years. I think it's okay if there are some stains, some scratches. Sorry, Coda is chewing a bone and choking next to me. Same goes for trim and millwork, which is just like other things like this. I'll put a picture. Built-ins, if they're in pretty good shape, I would consider leaving them because those are things that you can never get back, those original features of the home. And they just add so much to a space, and designing around them, in my opinion, is so much better, more satisfying in the end than just ripping them out. These are original built-ins in my previous house in Colorado that my contractor begged me to have them rip out, and I refused, and I'm so glad I did. They are from the original home in the 50s. It's the original fireplace, and I'm so happy we didn't change that. Like, I think it would have been so sad to lose those. Next is I would consider not painting wood elements, especially like trim and millwork. Of course, your house is your house, and I am seriously not judging. Just think about it, like really think about if you need to do that and want to do that, because having exposed wood and exposed brick and things like that, I just think is so beautiful and really speaks to like the history of the home, and it can add a design element in itself. Think about what you could do with it to really design around it and make it like a beautiful aspect of the home because it has a story if it's original. And lastly, before you rip out cabinets, see if you can repaint them. If they're in horrible shape, by all means rip them out, but sometimes a coat of paint and new knobs can do a world of wonders, and it's just a lot cheaper than ripping it out and a lot more sustainable. So those are the things I would just consider not changing when you are going into a renovation. Take that for what it's worth. If you were very overwhelmed about all of the things that I've been talking about, I want to share 3 things that are like the hard hitters, things that are so doable but that make the biggest difference, and that is paint, lighting, and window treatments. And I want to do a full video on each of those 3 things, but just really quick, painting your room or your entire home even just a warm neutral, a warm white, makes such a big difference. I can't even tell you. It's just like a brand new canvas to work with. It is so doable. For lighting, just switching out and avoiding any exposed bulbs makes a huge difference, as well as using warm, diffused light. So things like this really diffuse the light really well, especially if you use a warm bulb. And window treatments, switch out ugly things like this for curtains or Roman shades or even these bamboo shades. Those simple things are so impactful and not too expensive if you don't want them to be. Again, I'm gonna make a video about each of those things. So if you have questions on any of those 3 or really anything that I talked about in this video, please leave them below so that I can include them in a future video. Good luck if you are on a renovation journey. We are in it together. I'm about to buy a house too, and I'm not going to be doing a full-scale renovation, but I am definitely going to be doing a lot of home updates, and so I can't wait to share that with you guys. Also, make sure you're subscribed because part 3 is going to be things you should know before going into decorating your home or redecorating your home or your room. So hopefully you are excited for that, and I'll see you really soon. Bye.